Hi, I'm Mark. Welcome back to Foothill Paint Fabrication. Well, we're right back on the firewall for Project Ruby, and today we are going to be working on the transition from the transmission tunnel, to the new firewall sheet metal. So the tunnel falls short because there was the recess for the distributor that we're not using, and so we need to make a whole new piece that comes off the tunnel and then comes up and meets it with a nice rolled edge. So that's the project for today. It's kind of complex, at least complex for me, to make this with the reverse curve on another curve at an angle. So let's just go ahead and jump in here. I'll show you what we got to do, kind of how I figured it out, and then we'll just start hammering on some sheet metal, see if we can make this part. Okay, here's the area we have to connect. You can see I get my finger in there easily. So we want to come up here at an angle and then make a nice roll radius, just like we've got on the other parts. Radius up, and then meet this so we can scribe it and weld them all together. So we fell way short. It'd been nice if we had the extra sheet metal and I could have tried to manipulate this, but it's probably easier in the long run to make a piece and weld the two together. So to figure this out, it took me a little bit to figure it out because we're going up at an angle, it's not 90 to the firewall, and then we are also rolling off at different radiuses. So it flattens out here, sharpens up here, and it's a bigger radius here. So it took a little bit of figuring, so I ended up having to make a template like usual, right? So that goes up here, goes like this. And so that reaches around here, and that's how I figured out the shape of the piece of sheet metal I needed. Okay, so because you just can't use a flat piece of sheet metal, which I've learned, because I just thought, oh, I'll just put a roll on a piece of sheet metal. Well, it doesn't match this because it's coming up at an angle. So made a template, always fall back on the paper templates, and it always works out for me. So that's what I did. And then I just grabbed an old piece of crap sheet metal that I had cut off, actually off the firewall, kind of hammered it flat, and then I started testing and practicing to see if I could build this piece. And then it came out not too bad. It's pretty good over on this side. Of course, you can see, I was thinking, well, I can just use this piece, but it's pretty, it's got a lot of ripples in it and stretched out because of, you can see where it was cut off. So, and it doesn't really fit that well. So I've got a fresh piece of sheet metal, and that's what we're gonna work on, is reproducing this. Hopefully I do better the second time. And then over here, you can see where I've finished off some pieces. So I added a piece where we had cut that out because of the shape, and so I reshaped it. So now the firewall comes down, it all connects together, which works out pretty nice. So all we have to do is come around and then connect all this together. So let's go over to the table, piece of plywood, and we'll mark out the new piece of sheet metal, and then we'll start hammering on it. Okay, here's the sheet metal. It's all ready to go. This is actually off that old hood. I just cut a chunk off and cleaned it up. And you can see I cut it to my template. I've got a driver's side, passenger side label so I don't get all turned around. And what we need to do is figure out the depth where this curve starts. So I measured this out, and I'm going to measure in about 7/8 of an inch and draw a line along here. And that's where the curve kind of needs to start and then come all the way up. Now we don't want to go any more than we have to, because as this comes up and gets bigger, that means you have to stretch all the sheet metal that much more to make this thing curve. Because if we didn't, it would just straighten the whole thing out, like a piece of angle iron. So this has all been stretched to make a curve right here. So 7/8 should give us just enough to trim to clean it up. Then we can fit it on the car. Once it fits on the car, then we can actually get this welded to the car. I'm hoping to get that done today. And then we can scribe this to the firewall, and then the firewall will be ready to accept, go right on the car. We can't put it on yet because there's still some work to be done. I've got a couple ideas I want to do to that firewall, some designs to put into it, make it look nicer, and then some other things need to be cut in. So let me go ahead and get this line drawn, and then we'll go over to the vise, and we're going to start hammering on this thing. All right, guys, I jumped the gun a little bit. We have to bend this to this shape first, obviously. So I marked like an arbitrary line here and a matching one on here, so I keep going back to the same spot. I want to make sure that every time I go back, because this thing is going to keep changing shape as I roll this up, so I want to make sure I go back and don't start chasing a curve and then move it over an inch and then try to fix that curve. So all I'm going to do is just kind of lay it up here and just kind of bend it over my leg and make it, try to match this as best I can. Now I'm trying to hold it up a little bit where it's going to actually rest. So I know, you know, with that 7/8 line, that's about right where the curve's going to start. So, and we'll probably end up trimming this tunnel to make a nice clean line, but for now, just for bending purposes, we'll just kind of match that a little bit. And then I'm just going to bend this over my knee or my thigh here until we get what we want. Now this is 19 gauge. I seriously considered trying to use 16 gauge to make this part, but it just make it really, really hard to do. That stuff don't like to bend like this stuff does. I mean, you can't just manipulate it quite as easy. The thinner the sheet metal, the easier it is to push it around. So I'm going to go ahead and get this bent up till it matches this shape. Probably end up trimming some of my extra off so it lays down in here a little bit. And then we can go over and the little anvil I made a pipe anvil to shape this up. So give me a minute, bend this up, and I'll meet you over at the vise. All right, here's the pipe anvil I made. It's a piece of 1.5 inches. I put it in my pipe bender and bent it. It's got a straight piece here and just a different radius here. I welded a couple of pieces of 1/4 inch on there so I could clamp it in the vise. Not very sophisticated, but it's perfect for what we need to do here. And it's going to come in handy other times. I've been chasing stuff around on the bench, so this will come in handy. So all I did was basically put this on here and just tip this over, okay? The thing is, having this on here solid, I could hammer and then I could just whale the crap out of this lip right here, and that stretched it out. If I didn't stretch it out while I was doing this, this curve right here would go away. It would just turn it into a flat piece of sheet metal. You know, think about an angle iron, right? So, so the tighter ones, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I beat the crap out of this area right here to get this to stretch out. It's still not super thin or anything, but I really beat on it pretty hard. This was a crappy piece of sheet metal. I didn't really care. So that's going to be the game plan. Just slowly start tipping this over, moving it like this, and keeping it right on the apex right here, and just keep hammering and hammering and bend it, bend it, bend it, and then go back over to the car, check the shape, and then I know how much I need to stretch. Now, I don't know if you guys can tell, but you see that angle right there? So this doesn't go up at a 90 since it kind of sits like that. So I'm going to tip it over a little bit. I don't want to tip it too far and then have to take it back. So it's going to be kind of a slow process of me going back and forth to the car. I'll only show a little bit of it, you know, in and out, and then we'll do a couple of test fits and see where we're at. So let's just go ahead and start hammering on this thing. I'm going to put a glove on. It kind of saves my hand from the shock, and we're just going to kind of slowly start tipping this over. I got my sample here to make sure I don't screw up and you know, do it backwards or something. So that's how it sits, like just like that. We need to roll this lip over just like this. Then I'll just watch where that starts to break over and make sure it hits on my Sharpie line right there. As you can see, since I haven't stretched it, see how it straightened that thing out? So we need to start stretching that. To do that, I'll switch over to the ball peen hammer. It's got a lot more weight, and it'll be a lot easier to stretch that out. Then the curve comes back. I don't know if you can see the curve, but it's starting to come back. So that's the game plan. Just go along here. This one right here, this is a lot sharper. So I really have to make a lot of material right here to get this curve to stay in. So what I'll probably do is pre-stretch this area right here and then tip it over. This one is a lot more shallow. So I'm just going to start whaling away on it. This is more of a flatter area here. Switch over to the round face, start tipping this over a little bit. So there's a little bit of a curve in it, but I did lose quite a bit. So I'm going to just keep whaling away on this. I'll bring you back in a little bit, and then we'll see how it looks. Okay, after about 10 minutes of feverishly hammering, we've got the easiest curve on the whole thing. So got to start somewhere, right? So we got it tipped over, it's round, and we've got this shape from here to here. So, you know, that was the easy part. But you got to get it all done. You can't just do one end. It's got to be kind of go back and forth. So we got the middle. Now I can start working on the end. So I'm going to go back over and work from about here to here. This is kind of a sharp curve, so I really got to stretch this really hard, and then that'll start tipping it, bending itself over. When I hammer, it actually just slowly rotates over. It's not like I bend it. As this material gets longer, it just pushes itself over. It'll try to twist a little. I just twist it back, but we're getting there. Got a good start. Let me get back over there and keep on hammering. You see my chalk lines here. I go over to the car. There's some faint ones here. I'm slowly moving my way around. It kind of tells me the area I need to work. So this would be the apex right here. So I really need to stretch this part and then taper out on each direction. So it's coming together. Doesn't look like much, but it's actually matching the car pretty good. So I'm going to keep wailing away at this thing. All right, it'd be nice to have a power hammer to do this, but that's not something I have and something I really need. I don't do this kind of work very often. So we're looking really good. You can tell across, let me line up that line, and my Sharpie's right about at the right spot, so that should be a flat plane. So you can see we're really tight through here, and we just need to turn a little bit sharper right here. Just a little bit. It's touching in the back. I need to bend that up, but we're getting very close right here. And if I try to just bend it like this, all it does is flatten this piece out. So I just need to, you know, keep stretching that area right there, and this will slowly curve its way around just like it's done. And it's a lot of work just to get that amount of curve with this much roll. Now, if this was a lot more shallow roll, it wouldn't take very much. But since we're almost coming, we're not coming around to 90, but we're coming up pretty good. It takes a lot of stretching so this thing will keep its curve. So I'm going to do a lot more hammering, and then I'll bring you back. We'll take a look at this side, and then we'll tackle this side. This side is going to be a little more gradual. It's a gradual curve, but there's a lot of curve in it, so it's going to be fun. Just takes time and a lot of hammering. All right, guys, got it done. I'm sure you guys are sick of watching me hammer. I know I'm sick of hammering, so I just kind of powered through it and busted this out. So we're looking really good. That's actually, that little gap right there is actually in the tunnel, not this piece. So, but it's looking pretty darn good. We got a good fit on there. The clamp is holding it down. It fits really nice through here, and it kind of rises up gradually. I think that's just undulations in the tunnel, and this one pulls it down, but it all holds it together pretty nicely. And across the face here, it looks like it's lining up pretty nicely. So the only way to tell that for sure is to put the Firewall sheet metal back on and then slide this up to it and start fitting it. And then that's really the next step. So let me get the Firewall back on, and then we'll go on the inside, slide that up to it, and see how well we did. All right, guys, I've got to tell you, I'm pretty pleased with myself. That came out really well. It's fitting super nice across the top here, and it's pretty good over here, except this one piece. I don't know if I can get the camera around there, a little shaky, but that little corner right there is actually facing too far forward. It needs to be rolled back a little bit, and that'll allow that to slide forward and make a nice tight fit. This side over here, it's actually back away from the Firewall, and I need to scribe and cut that piece off right there because it's hitting that one. That way it'll go up and line up straight to it. And then we can start doing a little bit more fitting along this top and getting that roll sweetened up. But it's looking really good. So let me get the Firewall off. I'm probably going to put a couple little Sharpie marks across here so I know the distance this way, about where we're at. I can put some clamps on it and then just slowly start bending this side, then work on that side a little bit, maybe scribe that, and then we'll get it cut, and then we can try to get it in its final position. Then we can work on fine tuning where that is going to meet the 16 gauge there. Now that's actually on the inside, so we're actually 16 gauge thickness too far towards the camera right now. So it does need to go forward a little bit, and that's about the thickness over there. So we're pretty good on that side. This side shouldn't be that bad, and it's going to be one of those things where we kind of cut it, scribe it, get it to fit, tack it, and then hammer it into the right shape. Possibly weld it and then rehammer it to make it look really good. But I'm really happy with the way this came out. I can't believe it came out that well. So let me mess with it a little bit and then bring you back. Okay, I've been doing a little bending and a little trimming. So I went ahead and trimmed this line right here, the tunnel. The other cut was just kind of a cut it, get it out of the way cut, and I came back just a little bit and made a nice smooth cut all the way across. So when we scribe the other piece to it, it'll be a nice smooth line. So I'm about to trim the piece that we just made. If you guys see it right here, what I did was I made a little gauge to go from this line up a certain distance, and I marked it all the way around. So everything's parallel to this cut, or this line right here. It'll be a parallel cut. And if you guys notice, right here in the center, it's almost zero, right? And then as you go to the steeper bends where it's a lot sharper, see how much it grew right there? That is probably, I don't know, it's 3/16. So, it grew, it went from 0 to some of the sharper bends, 1/8 and 3/16. So I'm going to go ahead and get this trimmed up, and then we'll get the firewall back on and then fit this up in there, and then we're going to start thinking about trimming this piece to fit that new cut over on the tunnel. Okay, I got it up in here. I got everything trimmed. I trimmed over here, so that piece fits up inside there. And I went, and if you can see right there, there's a little 16 gauge shim. I put one on each side to push the firewall away, because when I scribe this piece from underneath on the tunnel, if I scribe it and cut it, then it's going to be this far too much. We have to go the thickness of the firewall material, 16 gauge. So that's why I shimmed that out. So I've got it pushed up against it, and I'm going to crawl up underneath there on the creeper and mark it with a Sharpie, and then we'll get that cut. All right, let's go ahead and get this cut. I'm going to try to use a bandsaw. It's got a board to make up the difference here. Hope that's right. Okay, not too bad, right off the cut. It's fitting in there really nice. I'm really happy the way it's turning out. So we are a little bit long, which is okay. So it's kind of hitting right there, and it's hitting right here. So, that's okay. So I can always trim it. So what I'll probably do is just trim a little bit off one side. Going around a radius like this, a little bit goes a long way. So I want to get one side fitted, clamp it, go all the way around, check the other side. Just trimming one side might do the trick. It's fitting really nice. The gap is really nice, except for right here. There's a little knob or ball or something sticking out right here that's keeping it from pushing up tight. But it's actually a pretty nice seam already. So we got nice gaps. So it's really not that bad, but I think I can make it better. So let me go ahead and get this trimmed up and fit on here properly, and then I think we're about ready to tack it in place and then get the firewall on here, and then we can mark it, and we'll see how everything fits, and then we can mark the firewall and cut that shape and see if we can get this thing set in here properly. Okay, that's about as good as I can get it. I had to trim a little bit off the length, a little bit off the back, and I don't want to mess with it anymore because I'll probably just screw it up trying to chase a perfect gap in there. So I've got a ton of clamps on here, and I'll get the TIG welder out, and we're going to just tack it in the middle and then go each direction, keep going back and forth. That way we can get these clamps off and get the firewall up here. I'm quite sure we're going to have to hammer and dolly and move this thing around till it all meets up right, but we've got a good shape. It didn't distort too much clamping it on there. It follows right up the tunnel and then makes the sweep. So let's get this thing tacked and see where we're at. Okay, let's get all these clamps off and see how it looks. Get that panel up here. All right, looks pretty good. Follows along there. Fit on there, didn't have to push on it too hard, so hopefully it retained its shape from when we slid it up and scribed it. Okay, we're going to call that a win right there. There's a little bit of a gap over here on the left, but I can hammer all that because that's right where that roll comes back in, and I couldn't quite get that to work into it when I had it loose. So now that's tacked on there, and once we cut the panel to match that, I should be able to hammer and dolly that together and then go ahead and get that tacked together. But it's looking really good right now. I think before I scribe the firewall panel, I need to weld this all the way because it could move. And I don't want to scribe the panel and then cut it, then weld that to the tunnel and then have it move a little bit and then screw it. So I'm going to go ahead and take a few minutes to go ahead and completely weld all that right there. And I'll bring you back when it's all welded and ground up, and we'll take a look at it, and then we'll get this panel scribed and cut. Okay, it's all welded and ground. Looking pretty good. Pretty happy about the whole thing. It's really solid. And I hope it fits. I hope the firewall fits on there. It looks like it should. And it didn't really warp or anything. I mean, this is an arch with a curved piece being welded to it, so pretty structurally sound, and it's solid now. Let's get the firewall up there, see how it fits, and see if we can mark it and get it cut. Okay. Fits up there pretty nice. Can't even get my fingernail in a few spots. So I'm going to take a Sharpie and I'll go ahead and mark this, pull it off, and then we'll cut it. Hopefully it fits right on there. Okay, really the best way to cut this would be with the bandsaw, but obviously this is way too big for that little tiny bandsaw. So I'm going to just use the cutoff wheel. I'll just stay away from the line, and then we'll use a grinder and the sander to inch right up to it and sneak right up on it. Okay, that's pretty good. Won't know until we put it up there. Let's give it a shot. All right, let's get this thing back on here. Cleat goes in. Like I said, we're not going to be welding this on for a while. We still got a lot of work to do to it. Let's see how we look here. Let me bring you in close. Okay, so if I push on this right here, I can see it's just barely too small, which is good. We're fitting right in here. This is starting to come together. I can't bend and do all this stuff because I need to kind of tack it and hammer all this together to make this a nice round corner right here. Same thing over here, but we are super close. So give me a few minutes to just kind of sand this. I'm going to probably scribe it and then just sand it till it just fits over the top, and I'll bring you back. We'll be just about done for the day. I think that looks fantastic though. That looks great. All right, I'll bring you right back. Okay guys, I got it sanded and fit on there, and it looks fantastic. Look at that. Super tight seam. Really, really happy. I mean, it's flush right here. It's not perfect everywhere because, you know, when I weld it, I'll weld a little bit or I'll tack it, tap it around until it's perfectly flush, but it is looking super good. I mean, and just the roll, having it come down and roll and go down the tunnel. We've got the roll over here and the 2 rolls over here. I think it's gonna look great when it's all done, but I'm super happy with the way this turned out. It's been a lot of work, but I think it's gonna be worth it in the long run. But like I said, we're not putting this on now. There's still a lot of work to be done to this piece of sheet metal before it goes on for the final time, but this was a big, big stepping stone to get to that point. Okay guys, that pretty much wraps up this video on making this piece to weld onto the tunnel so we can eventually weld it onto the firewall. And we did it without any specialty tools. A bent piece of 1.5-inch pipe, hammer, and a lot of determination. No shrinker, no stretcher, no nothing, no fancy tools. And we were able to do this. And you know, it just took a lot of you know, figuring it out, and just a lot of hammering. Really, it was a lot of hammering. I'm sure my neighbors are sick of listening to me hammer, but it came out beautifully. I'm so happy. It came out better than I'd hoped, really. So I can't really wait to weld this on so I can grind it and do the finish sanding on it and see how it really is going to look. But we got a few more steps before we get to that point. But it was a good one today. Thanks for joining me here at Foothill Paint Fabrication. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Mash that bell and drop me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. We'll see you on the next one.